So let's get started. So we're here to talk about the third wave, which is a phrase that you borrowed or reappropriated from Alvin Toffler.
Stole would be a correct word.
Okay, not to put too fine a point on it. So let's start easy. What is the third wave? How do you define this?
Well, first of all, I should say that when I was in college, which was a long time ago, I read a book by Alvin Toffler, a futurist, called The Third Wave. It was 1980, and I was completely mesmerized by it. And basically what Toffler was talking about was the first wave was the agricultural revolution, the second wave was the industrial revolution, and he was predicting, now this is 4 decades ago, the third wave would be essentially the digital revolution, the internet. And back then that was futuristic because it didn't really exist. And so when I decided to write a book, I wanted to, since that book meant so much to me, borrow from that idea. And what I've tried to do is write something about the 3 waves of the internet specifically. And the first wave was getting everybody online. And it's crazy to think about it, particularly for the younger folks in this room. But when we started AOL in 1985, so 32 years ago, only 3% of people were online. And those 3% were online 1 hour a week. So when we said we want to get America online, it was frankly a tall order and that first wave was just about getting everybody online, building the software, building the communication network, essentially building the on-ramps and educating people. And so sort of 1985 to 2000 went from nobody knew about it or frankly cared about it to by the end of that first wave, people couldn't live without it. That then set up the second wave, really the last 15 years or so, which has been about software and services, mostly apps riding on top of the internet. So everybody knows about Facebook or Snapchat or what have you. It's basically been the app economy. It's shifted from PCs to smartphones. And obviously huge successful companies have come out of that second wave focusing on apps. But now we're seeing the acceleration into the third wave, which I think is going to be really exciting. It's really integrating the internet in seamless and pervasive and sometimes even invisible ways throughout our lives, and in the process disrupt some pretty big sectors of the economy that haven't changed that much so far, like healthcare and education and manufacturing and food and agriculture and financial services, energy, these are kind of fundamental parts of our lives. How do we get around? What do we eat? How do we learn? How do we stay healthy? And huge sectors of the economy that are up for grabs in the third wave, but it's going to require a playbook that's different from the second wave. It actually can learn a lot from the first wave.
So let's table the playbook for a second and just delve deeper into what this third wave is going to look like. We've heard there's something familiar about it in that we've all been hearing about the Internet of Things for a really long time. Is this that? Is this different than that? Is the Internet of Things a subset of this? How do those things? And Beth, you've written about a lot of this stuff as well. How do you see this playing out?
Well, I think Steve calls it the Internet of Everything in your book, and I think that's pretty well said, that basically everything's going to somehow have connectivity to data. And that certainly in a company like GE and the customers we work with, whether you're an airline, a railroad, a hospital, we're all looking at how do we get our hands on more data. And it's not the data for data's sake, it's okay, the data's going to give me an insight and do something better. For example, if you're in a hospital, the average nurse spends something like 20% of his or her time looking for things. Where's the blood pressure cuff? Where's this? Where's that? Suddenly, if there's a sensor and a control on a thing, you can find out where it is. With robotics, it can come to you. I mean, there's a lot of these things that sound a bit outlandish that are happening now. If you're running a railroad and you want your locomotive to move just 1 mile an hour faster, that sounds really simple, but they're congested. And so how do you know where your things are, get things out of the way? That's what we're on the cusp of having happen, is just a lot more productivity and efficiency. It's been the great promise of the internet, but it hasn't been delivered at the scale in sort of more traditional industries like it will be in the next decade.
Right, I guess, first of all, I should say, the timer is not running down, so I don't know if we could get that going, and if we can't...
Otherwise, it'll be a really long session.
It'll be a long session. Otherwise, I will count on you guys to shout out when we've hit 60 minutes. So it sounds like, when I think of the Internet of Things, I think of it as consumer-facing and a smart home. It sounds like where a lot of the benefits are going to come are actually in the commercial, industrial side of the equation.
I think everything's going to be digitized. I mean, to me, the most exciting thing I could explain to anyone is just the face of manufacturing. Most people don't hang out in manufacturing facilities. But when you start to see things like 3D printing and the ability to basically print from powder new advanced materials and metals and shapes and geometries that before the human mind might have conjured, but the hand and the machinery couldn't make it. And so it's taking us into all kinds of amazing new facilities. You won't need big manufacturing facilities. You can print your shoe at a local facility, even in your closet potentially. That's where things are going in the next, not tomorrow, but in the next few decades.
And does the sort of advance of AI play into this? I've spoken to some people who talk about how soon every device will not just be connected as we think of it, but actually intelligent in a different kind of way.
Yeah, it's smarter in a variety of different ways, including AI, and more adaptive and more personalized. So it's building on what Beth was saying. In healthcare, I think it depends on where you are and who your doctor is, and where your hospital is. But for most people, the experience they have when they're dealing with a healthcare system is not that different than it was 10 or 20 years. Still a lot of paper, still a lot of waiting, still a lot of coordinating, and so there's still a lot of work to be done to try to make healthcare more convenient, more personalized, more affordable. And there's a number of different initiatives. And in the second wave, you saw a lot of things around healthcare apps and even fitness trackers, Fitbit, and things like that, which were terrific. But now we need to take the next step and really integrate it in ways that allow you to do a much better job of diagnosing and treating. Cancer, for example, it's still kind of a little bit luck of the draw. And Vice President Biden will be talking tomorrow about what he's trying to do with this cancer moonshot. There's a lot of investment now going into companies that are trying to basically almost create like an operating system for cancer that allows you to target things in a much more kind of direct and personalized way. It is the obvious and next iteration of the internet, of technology, of data, and of AI to try to kind of integrate it into healthcare, into education, into some of these other sectors. And that's what's so exciting. These are in some ways the most fundamental aspects of our lives. And so even though they changed a little bit in the first and second wave, I think they're up for grabs in the third wave. And it's going to be interesting. And it's why I have great respect for what Beth has been doing at GE. The trick in this third wave increasingly is going to be partnerships between some of these startups that have really good ideas and can move really quickly, and large organizations that have tremendous scale, credibility, understanding of sort of the environment, distribution channels, policy kind of understanding. How do you bring those forces together so that the small companies can get a lot more traction than they might on their own, and these big companies can stay relevant and be more agile than they could on their own? That's going to be one of the real challenges, because it's hard in this third wave. It's not just about what the startups are doing with like the big companies sitting on the sidelines. It's how they engage and how they dance together to really do things together that they couldn't do separately.
Right. So we're getting some great questions already, and I will turn to them very soon. So thank you for submitting them. We think about innovation, disruption. The slow, lethargic, large company that is immediately wiped out by the small upstart who comes in from outside and blows them away. It sounds like you're suggesting, maybe you can talk about this as well, what you've done with GE and elsewhere. It sounds like that model is changing. Like it's less going to be the kid in a dorm room who destroys the, for instance, media industry, and it's going to be more innovators who come up with something and partner with large companies to bring it to scale.
I think it is just a lot of partnership, because if you're a startup, you need access to global markets and scale. If you're a big company, you need access to new ideas. You all want to go there fast. So that ability to partner gets you there faster. Last week I was in Chicago. We opened something called MHub in Chicago that GE's a part of. It was really fun. Mayor Emanuel was cutting the ribbon with a welding gun. It was really great. But it's this manufacturing entrepreneurial facility. And what GE's done is we've put an open source engineering team there. And this is for our oil and gas business. I mean, it's not consumer facing at all.
Right.
And the ability to pull from all the entrepreneurs in the Chicago ecosystem, there are a lot of suppliers and people solving really tough problems. So to be able to come in and everybody contributes ideas, and then you go next door and you test it out, you 3D print a part, see if it's going to work, come back and figure it out. That's really, I think, the future that's now. You're seeing more and more of these spaces. It's kind of like WeWorks, but for manufacturing. And I think you're going to see that. We had done one in Louisville. Steve, you've been there, first build. It was
Right.
part of GE Appliances, and it was amazing. It was University of Kentucky, University of Louisville, and their student center was a manufacturing lab.
Wow.
And students could come in and test out little parts, and if you were a retired engineer in the community, you could come in and contribute an idea, and then right there, you could access a marketplace through like an Indiegogo, who wants to buy this ice maker, and we've got an order for 5,000 of them, let's go make them right next door in our little manufacturing facility. So you don't need the big scale, and everybody comes together. Some small entrepreneur has an idea for making ice cleaner, his or her idea gets plugged right in. So that's where I think you're going to see the models go forward.